Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome to Wireless Chat with Josh and Matt. We are really honored today to have Dave, the CEO of Marceco, joining us. Dave and I have known each other for quite a long time, so we wanted to have a time to talk to him, and we're going to talk about, what his experience has been with starting a business, building the business, making it sustainable. So, welcome to Wireless Chat, Dave.
Yeah. Uh, Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. We've obviously worked together for quite some time, and a lot of Marceconians, if we want to call them that, know the story about Marceco. But for the audience, why don't you tell us about how you started Marceco?
Most people know that I was a social worker in a former life, and 1995, I'm approaching 40 years old, like just a few months away, and I started Marceco at that time. But obviously, there's things that preceded that. And as a social worker, prior to starting Marceco, I was a crisis worker. And one of the advantages of being a crisis worker is you're paid to be available. And so if there's no crisis going on, you have time. And I got interested in the stock market. It was in the early to mid 90s. And I like to read. And so I would follow these companies really closely. I'd listen to their earnings calls. I read their 10Ks and their quarterly reports. And I invested in a company called GST Telecom. And this was, of course, post the breakup of Ma Bell. And so there were a lot of startups that were getting into the communications industry. GST Telecom was one of them. And during the course of my time following them, they purchased a company called NACT. And I think the company, I looked it up a couple of years ago. I believe it's still in business. It was an equipment manufacturer. And one of the, compelling reasons to purchase NACT was that they were in the business of making prepaid switches. And I had no idea what's a prepaid switch. I mean, that was like a mystery to me.
Not something you hear about a lot in crisis.
Right. Yeah. My colleagues didn't have the answer.
Yeah.
So anyways, keep researching, keep kind of checking things out, what's going on. And turns out, of course, a prepaid switch was essentially a telecom switch that would allow for the sale of prepaid phone cards, prepaid long distance cards.
Yeah.
Now, simultaneous to this, I was also listening to a radio talk show, the Bruce Williams Show. He was a florist who had taken his company public, franchised it, took it nationwide. He'd been successful, and he would give advice. And I like listening to him. I was somewhat interested in business, not sure why I gravitated that way, but it was.
Yeah.
And it was an advertisement on his radio show, to get into the prepaid long distance phone card business. And I bit. I pulled out the credit card because I had no money or had very little money, and went down to the local courthouse, purchased a DBA or paid for the DBA $10 for a shoulder bag at Office Depot, and $10,000 on a credit card, and I was in business. So that's really how it started.
I mean, I think a lot of our listeners probably can relate to that. Everybody kind of starts with a dream. Starting is one thing. What was your goal in starting Marceco? What were you kind of hoping to accomplish?
Well, and that's a little more complicated, but
Yeah.
I'll give you a few things that really were driving the decision. And Josh, this, I grew up in a house where there was mental illness, and honestly, that's why I ended up in social work. I mean, it was confusing, and it really took me 20 years to sort that out. But after being in the field and working for 20 years, it was like I got my answers, or I knew enough, and I knew I just didn't want to do this anymore. I'm approaching 40.
Yeah.
I don't think the window ever closes. Colonel Sanders, he made his big break at 65. But the window does get narrower.
Yeah.
It certainly gets narrower. So I'm 40, and I knew I didn't want to stay doing what I was doing. I considered going back to school. I'm probably an engineer at heart, but more than likely, if I'd gotten an engineering degree, I'd have tried to figure out how to turn it into a business and scale it. So
it would just be called Den Herder Engineering at this point, guys.
yeah. So this was doable. I could do it incrementally. I could keep my day job. Wasn't quite that bold where I was willing to just drop everything and take a chance. And it was really about, what are you called to do? What's your purpose? What do you want to accomplish in life? What contribution do you really want to make? I think that was probably the primary driving factor in terms of making that decision. There was a financial component. Marceco is called Mark and Ruth College Education Company. I needed to figure out a way to get my kids to college.
Yeah.
And, obviously there's grants and loans and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted a little more money available for that. And so there was that financial component. And the last thing, honestly, and Josh, you probably appreciate this, I was jealous of my brothers.
Yeah.
both of my brothers had their own business, and I wanted to own a business as well.
Well, I think he won, Josh. I mean, I think in the long run, he probably came out on top of those brothers. So, Dave, whenever you were starting the business, I mean, did you ever think that Marceco would end up being the size that it is today, and the things that are in front of us today, right, for Marceco to continue to grow?
That's a good question. If you don't dare think it, Matt, it'll never happen. I guarantee you that. And so I think there are so many things that will limit you in terms of if you want to take on the challenge of building your own business. Don't let your thinking be one of them.
Right.
And so I dared to think anything, and quite honestly, I still do. We got our master agent agreement in 2005. So
2005. So what was that? 18 years as a master agent, 28 years in business in the telco industry. What are some of the opportunities during those 28 years that you guys had to see, right? Because, I mean, it's one thing to have an opportunity out there, but if you don't even notice that it is an opportunity, you're not able to take advantage of it. Or if you notice there's an opportunity there and you just don't know how to go about taking advantage of it. What are some of the things that you guys saw that really helped lead you to saying, okay, we got to do that to put yourself in a position to be as successful as you guys are today?
Well, it was a little different for Jamal than for me. He was in retail. He owned a party store in Standale, Michigan. And in the early days of cellular, if you had a retail establishment, you were a potential cell phone sales organization.
Still are.
Back then, nobody had a cell phone.
Yeah.
Today there's like 330 million people in the country, but 440 million subscriptions, right? I mean,
exactly.
A lot of people have two or more. And so Jamal was solicited, and it was OmniPoint initially. They came in his store. Hey, do you want to sell prepaid cell phones? And initially it was prepaid. That's what he was selling in his store. And he said yes, and realized within a couple months that he's making more money selling prepaid cell phones than he's making in all the other products in his store put together.
Right.
So that's compelling. And I think we're both always looking for opportunity, and we're pretty risk tolerant. So we're willing to take those chances. And so most of our energy and effort has really been in pursuing opportunities within that industry as supporting a sales organization for the carriers. I mean, that's where we've really we thrived with that. We rode that wave. But we recently, maybe it's been a couple of years now, but we started a reverse logistics company, and we think that there's opportunity there. One of the advantages of that, of course, is you're a little more in control of your destiny.
Right.
You're less dependent on a larger organization in terms of your opportunity.
you get bigger, you add those opportunities. It's really important to make a company that lasts. So from your perspective, Dave, what are some characteristics of a sustainable company? What are some of those defining things that make sure that a company is in it for the long haul?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot, honestly, and maybe more than we could cover in a few minutes here, but I'll give you four.
Good.
And I'll start with core values. And in any business, things change constantly. Anything can change. And in a market economy like in which we live, it's very likely everything will change. However, there is one thing that never changes, and that is your core values. So I think if you get that right, I think that's a critical piece. I think, practice core values from day one. Jamal and I are both kind of cut out of the same cloth there.
Mm-hmm.
We never really identified, well, here are values that we really practice and we champion until more recently, and that was under the influence of Patrick Lencioni, reading some of his stuff, and now we share them throughout the company. So I think it's critical that everybody in the company understands that there's certain values that drive our decisions.
Yeah.
I would say intentionality. Now, the decisions, I made the decision back in 1995 when we started that I wanted to be standing in the end. That was kind of my catchphrase. That was something I said in front of the employees frequently. We need to be standing in the end. So pretty much everything trumped pretty much everything, right? If it didn't help us, be that company that was still standing in the end, then we bypassed it.
Yeah.
So intentionality, and people start businesses for a lot of different reasons, and they're all legitimate. I'm not saying they're not legitimate, but you have to be very intentional about and you have to be that early on. You have to be intentional about wanting to survive, wanting to be standing in the end, because the decisions we made 10 years ago are playing out today, and the decisions we make today will be playing out 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Third, you have to have opportunity. And, there's a saying in Minnesota, some people just land with their ass in the butter. And I like the saying, there's an element of truth to it. We were, prepaid and cellular came together for Jamal and me back in the late 1990s, early 2000, and it's been a great ride. Those two things came together, and obviously we pursued more than just prepaid cellular, but the combination of those two things, it's opportunity. You have to have opportunity. I think we have at least, I'm looking ahead probably another 10 years, right? And maybe longer than that. We certainly hope longer than that, but we want to be diverse and in terms of our approach to opportunity. And if it isn't, we hope to have other things in place.
Yeah.
And then the last I'm going to say is a balance between entrepreneurism and structure. And you can get so structured that you miss opportunity and you miss it frequently. And I think it's a slow death, right? You can be so entrepreneurial, you're going all over the place and it's crazy, and you really can't take full advantage of the opportunities. There needs to be a balance, and we're working all the time to strike that right balance. And I think it's critical if you're going to be a company that lasts.
That sounds like an interview in and of itself, Matt. That might be
we may have to put a pin in that, right? And come back to that for sure.
It might be a Kim interview. We might have to get her on the line for that one as well.
Absolutely. I just wanted to dive in onto those 18 years, and really, I guess, you can go back to the 28 of all the different changes, right? We touched a little bit about how things went from the party store for Jamal, or from the phone cars for you, to where we are today, and lots of changes with carriers. But even outside of the cellular world, right? Outside of the telco industry, and in businesses as a whole, you're selling something generally, right? You're providing a service, and things are changing. We went from, I think back to 1997 where I was installing car phones, in vehicles, and now you can answer the phone on your watch, and you don't use the GPS anymore; it's on your phone. Nobody's walking around with big cameras. They're on your phone. All of that stuff is what we're selling today that we never thought about selling back then. How important is adaptability in your mind, right? Being able to change as things are coming while still staying focused on your core, you know, principles, the things that you've set out to do. How important is that in your mind?
All the things that are changing in the industry, that's external to ourselves. And obviously you have to adjust to that. But, I also look at adaptability from the point of view of internally, like as a company, in 1995, Marceco was me.
Right.
I was the finance guy, I was the IT guy, I was the sales guy, I was the operations guy. It was just a single individual and, making it work. But I think when we got our boost contract, which was in 2004, we probably had 10 people. And everybody, we all kind of did the same things, or we all could do the same things.
Right.
And it was sort of, getting together in the morning and, what do we got to do today? And we would just figure out a way to do it. Well, we have an HR department. We have an IT team of 7 people. We have a fairly sophisticated ERP. We have a finance department with very specific roles. Our field team is 50 people, or maybe not 50. I'm not sure what it is today, but it's it's a good sized team,
Yeah.
and they're working all across the nation. The demands of the carrier continue. I mean, they get more sophisticated. They know what they need to do in order to be successful, and we contract with them. We're here to, they're our customer, and we're here to delight them. And so we have to figure out ways in order to effectively and efficiently, and I love those 2 words as well, effective and efficient. You can't have one without the other. You need both. We have to figure out how to do that. So a lot of growth internally in terms of building a company. One thing I like to say, and I'll finish with this, is really easy to make money in this country. Pretty much anybody can make money. It's really difficult to build a business.
Right.
Yeah. So kind of wanted to end the conversation today with, what are a few books that you would recommend for, well, let's say somebody starting a business, somebody that's kind of going through the growing pains, and somebody that's looking for new perspective.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick list here. Patrick Lencioni, you can't go wrong reading any Patrick Lencioni book. They're easy reads. He writes them in the form of fables.
Yep.
You can read a book in an hour or 2. If you're going to pick, he's written 11 or 12. I would pick The Advantage, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and The Ideal Team Player. I'd start with those 3.
Yep.
I would say, looking at my notes here.
Yeah.
In terms of management, Peter Drucker, kind of the foremost authority on that, and also a prolific writer and widely known, widely respected. And then of course Gino Wickman, Traction. It's influenced us. We use EOS in our operation, so also an important read. And then more recently, There's No Such Thing as an IT Project, which is a great read in terms of just understanding the role that IT, which is becoming increasingly important in terms of any business.
Absolutely.
And then I'll just add one more, The Corporate Life Cycles. Understanding how businesses evolve over time and what the potential tasks in any given cycle is, or the things that you need to accomplish, as well as the potential pitfalls.
I'll tell you what, Dave, we'll get the list from you, and we'll put it in the comments below, so that folks that are watching are able to kind of see exactly what you would recommend for them to read around kind of what we're talking about today with building a sustainable business. We've got a lot, I feel like, still to cover, and definitely am enjoying talking with you and picking your brain a little bit. And taking a walk down memory lane on, kind of how some things got started, and being able to put yourself in, that 15 years ago to the same spot somebody's watching this video probably is in today, right? And how do we take that next step? So definitely, if you're open to it, would like to have you back and continue to dive in a little deeper into some of these things, such as your guiding principles, such as just you mentioned earlier, right? Your why. Like, I understand why you get into owning a business. I know a lot of times that can get derailed, right? With people, because things are not what they thought it was going to be. That old saying, it's never as good as you think or as bad as you think. It's usually somewhere in between, but things come up, right? And things get hard. It's very difficult to run a business. So how do you press through that, right? Because that's your true why, that you do what you do, that's your calling, right? And you mentioned EOS. I'd like to dive into that a little bit, Josh. I think there's a lot of stuff there that we can really get into that would be very helpful for folks. So we'll keep this series going. We'll keep picking your brain a little bit, and hopefully everybody out there is gaining a lot of wisdom from you, and are able to see different things that they can take. And maybe not everything that you say can be used by everybody, but certain people can take and implement different things into their business, and hopefully be a lot more successful. So we'll keep doing that. And look, we really appreciate your time today. It's great to talk to you. I always enjoy it. I always come away with little nuggets every time we talk, and get excited about what we've got coming up. So, for all of our partners that are out there watching, man, we really appreciate everything that you do for Marx Eco. We love you guys. We appreciate your partnership. If you're not a partner of Marx Eco's, what are you doing? Give us a call. Reach out to us below on the information below, and find out why it's better at Marx Eco, so that you're able to get different videos from us, right? Make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you like these videos, and we'll put you a new video every Thursday with great folks like Dave and different industry leaders on different ways that we can help your business grow, and help you get the things that you need out of your business. So appreciate it, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave.